All right, everyone, welcome to another video in the Coaching Mastery series. I want to say all these, well, I will say all of these videos are important, but man, today's topic is going to be so critical. It's a really important distinction that we have to understand because it's a concept that is all-encompassing, which is basically fear. So we're going to break that down and give you something else to really focus on rather than do what most people are doing, which is struggling with their fears and not really getting very far. So this is Coaching Mastery series. We've done a bunch of videos in this series. You can find all of the replays on YouTube and on Facebook, facebook.com/CoachJohnSmith. Go to the video playlist and you'll find Coaching Mastery there. YouTube.com/CoachJohnSmith, video playlist. You'll find Coaching Mastery there. You can go to bit.ly/YouTube replays and go straight there. I feel like my quick relay of that information has gotten better and better. All right. Oh, and we did 2 mini series inside there, 4-part series about the 4 stages of neurotransformational success, and also a 5-part series of how to change a human life. We did a really deep dive webinar last night as well. You can still register for it and get the recording. You can go to coachjohnsmith.com/part-time coach with hyphens in between the words, all lowercase. And we taught the strategies to make really good money as a part-time coach. Shared some of the stories that we've heard from some of our coaches. One of them just texted yesterday that she made $13,000 this year part-time. That's almost $2,000 a month. Part-time. Part-time. I know a lot of coaches who've been on the calendar for years and haven't made $13,000. And we're not trying to shame anybody. We're just trying to say this is what works for almost everybody and this is what doesn't work for almost everybody. And the pressure that most people put on themselves with time goals or getting it right or getting it perfect or quitting their job and wanting to go full time or even having a little bit of success and then quitting their job. It's a big mistake for almost everybody. So we just brought the truth for a little while, and you can watch all of it and hopefully it'll help you create more success part-time, because on your way to full-time is part-time, right? Even if you're actually doing it for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, you've still got to go through the part-time phase, part-time success. And that's what we broke down in the webinar. We also shared we can share the bonus with these guys, right? Because they're watching the video. So, all right. So we shared a bonus package that expires in a few days from now. It expires Sunday, August 28th of ECCP, BCC, BCC 2.0, which is going to happen soon, as well as a behind the scenes marketing program. That whole package is available up until Sunday, August 28th. So check it out. Let's give them a timestamp. What's the timestamp they can go to if they just want to check out that package? I think it's about an hour 35 in or something like that. I think we start talking about ECC a little bit earlier than that. But if you just want to go straight there and you want to know what that package is, it's about 1 hour and 35 minutes. 37 minutes-ish. All right, if you get to 1 hour, 10 minutes, what's 30-10? Isn't that 1 hour 40? Oh, I didn't see the thumb. I didn't see the thumb was hidden. Michelle, if you can't tell, you guys can't see Michelle, but she's below my screen here in StreamYard and doing her best sign language impression, trying to relay to me what the time is. And so it looked like she was telling me 1 hour and 30-10, 1 hour 39, somewhere around there. But if you go to 1 hour 35, you just wait a few minutes and you'll get there. So let's talk today about a distinction that's so critical. One of the most important conversations that almost everybody deals with is fear. How do I get over the fear? It could be the fear of failure, The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, if we go a little bit deeper, the fear of disapproval, or the fear of success. One of the things we talked about in the webinar last night is that I was talking to a woman recently, and she recognized that she was actually more afraid of people saying yes to her in coaching because she didn't really believe in her ability to help somebody. Let me know if this lands for you, because this is very real for a lot of people, myself included, in the earlier days. It's one of the things that most early coaches struggle with to some degree, because we want to do a really good job. And so we actually are concerned, and for some people it's a legitimate fear of somebody saying yes, because if they say yes, then you have to coach them. And if you don't believe in your coaching, then you might not have the certainty that your coaching can actually change their lives. And so what you got to understand about that is, if you have a fear of failure and you're doing everything that you can to motivate yourself or inspire yourself or push yourself through the fear of failure, but what you're getting to on the other side of the fear of failure is a fear of success, why would your brain help you? Why would your brain push you through one fear to a bigger fear? And when somebody hires you as a coach and pays you money, that's a bigger fear to let them down than somebody saying no to you and never paying you money. Now, this might not make sense to the intellectual mind for a lot of you, but you have to understand what's actually in your way if you're going to remove the systemic problems. Fear of success is a system. It's in your body. If you have a fear of success, you're going to have that fear in a lot of areas that touch success. Money probably being one of them. Performance maybe being another one. You want to perform if you do succeed. Visibility being a huge one for a lot of people. So a lot of people, for instance, are focused on the fear of imposter syndrome, right? Like that's one of the manifestations of fear. And for most people, it's actually a fear of visibility. That's not the same. Like the solution to imposter syndrome for most people is perfection. The solution, at least that's what most people are trying to use as the solution. If I get better, or if I can adequately hide all the things that I don't want people to know about me, then they won't find out about me. Then I can be successful. Basically, I mean, all you're doing is strengthening the facade. That's not authentic success. So trying to overcompensate with perfection or avoidance or hiding, and that is the overcompensated solution for the fear of visibility, which is masking itself as imposter syndrome, that's only going to work never. Whenever you create overcompensation strategies, it actually increases the fear. I mean, think about this. Let's say that you're afraid of people seeing something. And because of that, you put up a wall, and that wall is 6 inches thick. But then you become really afraid of people seeing it, so you strengthen the barrier. Now the wall is 12 inches thick. And then as you go on, you get really good at putting more and more on that wall, and the wall becomes 2 feet thick or 5 feet thick. What's the distance between what you're giving the world and who you really are? Is it getting shorter or further? It's getting further. So what it does is actually increases the distance of inauthenticity, but it also creates more pressure of what happens if that wall breaks. What happens if that protective mechanism gets crushed? Now, it makes sense to the intellect. Let's get people further and further and further and further away. Let's get us further and further and further away from the thing that we're afraid of them seeing, or the thing that we're afraid of being exposed. Makes total sense. It just only works never. Actually works if we're defining something working as being sustainable. If we're defining success as something that can live long-term and actually grow, then the overcompensation strategies that most of us use to cope with our fears don't work, but they actually make the fear worse. it increases our fear of the thing that we're afraid of in the first place. So it increases the fear of the thing. It increases the pressure of that thing being exposed or that thing actually being realized. And then all we can do is continue the overcompensation. Let me know if this is landing for you. We always try to dissect and go deep because we want you to understand this stuff, but we also want you to understand this stuff. So we don't want it to be confusing in our attempt to dissect. But again, you have to know what's actually happening. Because if you get really good at hitting the wrong target, you haven't made any progress. You've just gotten good at hitting the wrong target. And what happens is our brains get the illusion of success, the illusion of a solution. Because now our perfectionism has hidden the idea that we're actually still afraid of authenticity or still afraid of being seen or still afraid of our flaws being revealed, right? So that's the dance that most of us have with fear. And the way that we're trying to solve the fear is wrestling with the fear itself and the protection of the fear. And then we think the protection is the problem, but the protection is not the problem. The protection is a solution to the problem. Let me say that again. The protection is not the problem. In this case, perfectionism is a protection. It's a protective mechanism to the fear, for the fear. It's a solution for the fear. It's a protective solution for the fear. It's not the problem, and it's not negative. I was doing a training the other day, and we were talking about negative head talk. And the host said, how would you advise people to deal with negative head talk? And I said, you know what? I don't think there's such a thing as negative head talk. I think there's only protective head talk. We have protective head talk. And that just changes the entire energy. It's not negative, and it's not sabotaging us. There's nothing inside of us that wants to sabotage us, because sabotage has the connotation of intentionality. Meaning, if I'm trying to sabotage you, there's a reason that I don't want you to succeed. There's a reason behind my sabotage. There's intentionality there. Your protective mechanisms have no intentionality to keep you stuck. The only intentionality is to protect you from something that you said you're afraid of. So if you look at the protective patterns that we have, perfectionism, procrastination, fear of visibility is a protective pattern. Imposter syndrome is a protective pattern. Time management issues is protection. The things that we hold on to as the problems are almost always protective solutions to the problem. So why is that important? Because if you have a problem here, your fear, you have a solution here, but from this side of the solution, you see this as the problem and you wrestle with the solution as though it's the problem. Let's say you win, which will happen only never, but let's pretend you win. Let's pretend you win and you're able to remove that protective solution because you've decided it's the problem. And damn it, if we could just get rid of this perfectionism, then we could go out and get all of our goals and dreams. Let's pretend that you're the first person in human history to do that. And so you do that and you remove the protective solution as though it is the problem. What has changed with the fear? Only nothing. Nothing has changed except you've removed the protection. You know what that means? Whatever you were afraid of before, now you're more afraid of because you just removed the protection that you've been building for a long, long time. So now what happens is most people are never able to do this because they see the mechanism as the problem and it's not the problem. So they try to solve it as though it's the problem, which is why they never solve it because it's not the problem. And this is where dreams die. Trying to solve the solutions as though it was the problem and never actually realizing what the real issue is. I hope this is landing for you because Now the next piece is everything. So what I've learned is that wrestling with our fears in the way that we tend to wrestle with them. And by the way, so many people will sell you solutions to the solution, and then nothing will get solved. They'll teach you how to turn every no into a yes, let's say. They'll teach you how to become fearless. And the connotation of fearless is not less fear, but no fear. That's the connotation, right? Just be fearless. How about no fucks given? How about that? How about I turn you into a sociopath to where you don't care what anybody think? Like, no, whatever anybody thinks about you don't care, because I'm going to turn you into that person that gives no fucks. Those are serial killers, you guys. That should actually not be the thing that you want to try to do. And then, by the way, you're going to turn into the person that doesn't care about what anybody else thinks, and then you want to be a transformational coach that's going to change people's lives with empathy. Like, if we just break down what our brains think the answers are, like the brain thinks the answer to become an empathetic transformational coach is to be robotic. Like, let's just get rid of everything that makes us human so that we can then help humans. That's not the answer. But we're sold the answer all the time. But they're really just more compensation, right? So what I've learned is that struggling and wrestling and fighting against those protections gets us nowhere. The answer is actually, watch this, the answer is actually to do nothing with your fears. Nothing except feel them and try to understand them. Don't try to change them. Don't try to dissolve them. Don't wrestle with them. Don't try to outpower them. Don't try to outmuscle them. And sure as hell, don't try to out-intellect them. Just feel them and get curious about them. And then leave them alone. Because just don't worry about it. And I'm going to explain why you don't need to worry about them. Instead of wrestling with your fears and getting into a fight with them, just build courage instead. And that's different. Courage is not the absence of fear. I'm sure most of you have heard some version of this. Courage is acting in spite of the fear. Courage is acting with the fear. Courage is understanding the fears. That's why I said get curious about them. And then using the lessons inside the fear, using the power maybe even inside the fear, using the leverage that you might have inside the fear, incorporating it into your journey. There's nothing wrong with the fears that most people have decided need to be gotten rid of first. So most people have decided that the first step is to get rid of the fear, and then the second step is to take action. There's nothing wrong with those fears. There's nothing wrong with the existence of them, and they're actually empowering in so many ways. So it's not possible to get rid of them, and it's not smart to get rid of them because they actually help you when you incorporate them. But as long as you use them properly, fear should be your co-pilot, just not your main pilot. Don't make all your decisions based on fears, but bring fear with you, because the fearful voice is actually extremely helpful. It's extremely helpful to know what you're concerned about. Now, some of those voices have zero power, and you don't need to pay any attention to them other than just listening to them. Like, you don't need to chase them, right? Some of the voices of fear might say something like, well, what if you do a video and nobody watches? Okay, yeah, tell me more, fear. What if I do a video and nobody watches? And you'll see that kind of a voice actually dissolve all of its power on its own. Like, all right, so what if I do a thing and I don't succeed? What if I fail? You can just listen to some of these voices and just get curious and try to understand them, and they will spin themselves out. And then the power in that voice completely goes away. Great. You're not wrestling with it. You're not fighting with it. You're actually just exploring it, and it dissolves itself. Some of them. Some of them will actually let you know what you're really afraid of. And then with courage, you lean in anyway. With the knowledge of what you're actually afraid of, you teach yourself that you can be afraid and take action. See, most of us are programmed that that's an either or. You can either be afraid or you can be unafraid and take action. You can either be afraid and not take action, or you can not be afraid and take action. And that's just not human existence, because not having fear will literally kill you within 24 hours. So you can't get rid of the protective mechanism in your brain that wants to keep you alive. It actually likes you being alive. One of the ways that our brain keeps us alive is fear. So what most people are trying to get rid of is the mechanism that keeps us alive. Now, I know people are like, well, I'm not talking about like, the survival fears. I just want to get rid of the protection and or the, procrastination and the perfectionism and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, you can't do that. It's either on or it's off. You can't just tell your fear mechanism to go, okay, so I want you to keep this thing, like make sure I don't get hit by a bus, but I want you to stop making me afraid of the spotlight. I just want you to stop getting in my way. I want you to stop sabotaging me. But you can keep all the stuff that keeps me alive, but I just don't want you to create any of those fears that keep me emotionally safe, right? I want you to keep me physically safe, but I just don't want you to keep me emotionally safe anymore. Fear's like, no, that's not going to happen. No. But here's what we're doing when we build courage instead of fear. We're teaching ourselves, number one, that fear is okay. And number two, that we can do fearful things. So when fear shows up, we won't have this 5-alarm, fire drill in our head. Like, oh my goodness, we got to get rid of this fear. Fear shows up. I'm nervous. I got butterflies in my stomach. We're like, great. That's the process of growth. So you won't have a breakdown with the existence of fear. But one of the things that we talked a lot about in the webinar that I think is the most critical element of your success as a coach and as a human, but as a coach, is that you trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, if you don't trust yourself, then you are your own enemy. If you don't trust yourself, then that means you're afraid of yourself. And guess what? You are everywhere you go. So if you are everywhere you go and you don't trust yourself, which means you're afraid of yourself, it's like being afraid of, we hear that phrase, that person is so scared, they're afraid of their own shadow, where your shadow goes everywhere. Well, not really. Like if you go indoors, you don't have a shadow anymore, but the shadow self goes everywhere. So if you're afraid of something in your shadow, if you're afraid of something that you don't want people to know about, if you're afraid of yourself, you are literally living in constant fear, but only 24 hours a day and only every day of your life. You're living in constant fear. Why? Because you're living in your body, and your body is the fear of itself. So being afraid of yourself is not a good strategy. It's actually one of the reasons that most people won't take action, because they're actually more afraid of themselves. They're afraid of themselves letting themselves down, or they're afraid of themselves beating themselves up after they fail. So when you carry around the fear of yourself, you'll never be able to take risks to the degree that you have to in order to grow. So you've got to heal your relationship with yourself in the face of risk, in the face of your fear. And that, you guys, is courage. It's understanding that you have a fear, do it anyway, and prove to yourself that you won't die. Prove to yourself that the thing that your fear is afraid of happening will either not happen. Depends on the fear. I was going to try to give you a percentage. I was going to say like Probably 80% of the time, the thing you're afraid of happening isn't going to happen. But I think that's going to depend on the kind of fear. But with a lot of the fears, and I'll say most of the fears, the thing you're afraid of happening is not going to happen. But I actually hope it does, because the other option is that if the thing that you're afraid of happening happens, but you don't die, and it's actually not that bad, then what has just happened to this fear? It's just been completely neutralized, because it's been telling you, hey, if you take this action, this catastrophe is going to happen. And you're like, well, I took the action, and what you said was going to happen happened, and what you said was going to be a catastrophe wasn't a catastrophe. So thank you for the narration, and there's no reason for me to be afraid of taking that action anymore, because the thing that I was afraid of happening happened, and not only was it not that bad, it actually helped me. It actually helped me learn a lesson. It actually helped me build a muscle. So here is the critical distinction, that the things that our fears are afraid of happening are actually requirements for our growth. The things our fears are afraid of happening are requirements for our growth. So now we have a simple choice. Are we going to choose to stay comfortable with our fears, or are we going to choose to grow in spite of them? And sometimes, you guys, life really truly is just pick a track. You're either going to commit to comfort, or you're going to commit to growth. And the reason that these fears exist is comfort, because we don't like to feel uncomfortable. The fears are afraid that discomfort is danger, and danger is a threat. That's what these fears are afraid of. So when we can not dissolve them by fighting against them, but when we can overpower them with courage. See, watch this. What if your fears actually don't do anything? Michelle made this great point yesterday when we were talking about this. What if this is your level of fear right here? And you've been doing everything you can to try to stamp that down and jump as hard as you can and like get this thing down so you can then take action, right? What if the answer actually isn't to do anything with your fears? Just increase your courage. Because once your courage actually is bigger than your fears, now go ahead, put the fear in the ring. Go ahead, bring all of the fears that you've always had, put them in the ring, because I have something that's more powerful. And inside that courage is going to be a desire for pretty much all of you to serve other people and or to see what you're made of. And when those two things combine with each other, fear has no chance. No chance. Why? Because fear is actually based on the desire to protect self. That's what it's based on. And you can't protect yourself and serve other people at the same time. You just can't. In any given moment, you're doing one or the other. Every time your fear is the main pilot and taking control of the wheel, in that moment, you're trying to protect yourself. And here's what I know. Most of you actually, I'm going to say all of you, actually want to help others more than your desire to protect yourself. It's just that we haven't tapped into that enough, partly because we don't understand everything that I'm trying to explain here. So we don't understand that we're just talking about two different wells. What are you going to tap into? Are you going to tap into the ego's desire to protect yourself? Or are you going to tap into your soul's desire to serve other people? When you tap into that one, it has so much more power than your fears of protection. Like it's ridiculous. And so then you're like, okay, that's cool. Like, okay, you can try to protect me. You can still scream at me with the, what if they find out? But I'm going to overpower that with, yeah, what if they do find out and I help change somebody's life? Great. And they kind of might need to find out for me to help change somebody's life. So now what happens is you incorporate the fear And now it's not even this versus that. It's both of these together, because fear is your friend. Fear is a part of your team if you understand it. It's actually not an adversary if we understand it, because it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of protection. It's coming from a place of just not wanting you to be threatened by danger. But why would anything not want something else to be threatened with danger? Because it cares about that thing. Why would you put a fence around your yard? Because you want to protect whatever it is inside that fence. Why do you put a playpen around a baby? Because you don't want the baby to move beyond into the dangers of the room. We only protect things we care about. So your fear is coming from a place of love and care. It's on your team. Don't make it an adversary and try to fight it. It'll only work never. And then you will become your own adversary. So just to wrap this all up in summary, if you stop fighting against the fears by understanding why they're there, by recognizing that the problem, I'm putting those in air quotes, mechanisms is actually the solution, then you can just incorporate it and build your courage anyway. Now, how do you build your courage? I already alluded to it, but let me highlight it. The main way to build your courage is to just ask yourself, would you rather protect your ego, or would you rather serve a human? Would you rather serve another person? So if you're about ready to do a Facebook Live and this thought comes like, my hair doesn't look great, this lighting isn't right, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. In that moment, what are you doing? Are you protecting or are you serving? In that moment, you're protecting. In that moment, if you called a timeout on yourself and said, all right, let's see it. Okay, my hair doesn't look good. Lighting's not right. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. Do you really think that the person out there who needs to hear your message gives a shit about your lighting? Do you think the person who's asking the questions that your wisdom can answer really cares about strands of hair being out of place? Do you think they really care? In that moment, listen, challenge the fears, and choose service anyway. Because that's what drives you more anyway. You're never going to look at a video after it's done and go, dang, look at my lighting and my hair, and just feel fantastic about yourself. But what you might do is read a comment that somebody says, wow, I've never thought about it that way. Or can we talk? Can you help me? That's what will give you fulfillment. So when you stop and choose service, you are building courage. And then there can become a point where courage becomes a piece of you. And the little fears, like they're just little droplets of water that will just wash right off of you. Because inside the courage is commitment and conviction to something bigger and more meaningful to you than what the fear was trying to protect all along. That is the real way to not get rid of fears, not dissolve fears, not think that the first step is to become fearless and not care about what other people think. It's really just to leave it where it is and overpower it with something bigger. And you all have it. And when you build on top of that, your ability to coach, when you understand human behavior, and now you've got the skills confidence on top of the purpose conviction, now you become an unstoppable transformational force. I'm going to stop there with this message. Hopefully it's landed with you, whether you're watching live or watching the replay and something did really connect some dots or shake something up for you or give you a different angle to look at it, then please let me know what it is. I always want to see what is really hitting you guys, what's really landing. And if you have any questions about anything that I said or applications of any of this, then let me know. I think you guys can tell. If you watched any of our videos, you can tell. Our intention is always to remove the ingredients that are actually causing the problem, or give you a mind shift that will completely change the effect that maybe our patterns had on us before. Because most of us are staying on the path of protection or staying on the path of comfort, and we're expecting the growth and the fulfillment that literally cannot live on that path. Meaning, so many people are following a recipe and expecting something to come out of the oven that recipe does not have the capacity to create. I want you to change the recipe so that what you're wanting out of the oven is possible. That's what we try to give to you. So we've said many times that we've got a couple certifications coming up, or one certification coming up. We've got 2 certifications that are available. One of them is online. It's called BCC. It's an at your own pace online program, 10 modules, over 20 hours of deep dive understanding of neurotransformational behavioral coaching, meaning how can we change behavior in humans? One of the big missing pieces for most certifications that I've taken and or talked to a lot of people about what they've taken is the below the water understanding of why we do these coaching exercises. That's the missing piece for most people. And if you don't have that piece, you can't trust yourself. All the things we've been talking about. It's going to be very difficult to be courageous if all you have is the surface level stuff. Because what happens when the waves get a little big? What happens when the weather starts to change a little bit? What happens when your boat starts to rock? What happens if you come out of that boat? If you're afraid of the water, that's going to be really tough. So breakthrough coaching certification is the introduction of that. You can jump in at any time. It's $497, or there's a payment plan. You go to coachshansmith.com/BCC. ECCP is a 5-day deep dive that is happening soon, September 6th through the 10th. September 6th through the 10th, it's all online. If you're in a different time zone, well, different, I guess, is relative from me here in America. I'm in the Pacific time zone. If you're in a different time zone, you live on another continent, anywhere else around the world, we've pretty much had somebody in every time zone go through ECCP online. So it can be done, and we can work with you and help you manage the time zones. Everything is being recorded. So we've done this event multiple times now online, and we've polished it up, and we can deliver it really well so that everybody gets a really powerful experience. One of the thoughts that I had this morning was about foundation. Foundation is predictable. Fads are not. Fantasies are not. Quick fixes, shortcuts, assembly line approaches, one size fits all size, none of those are predictable because they're not based on foundation. Foundation is predictable because we made some pretty bold statements in the webinar last night. One of the things we said is, you come through this machine, you will, on the other side of the machine, be produced as a transformational agent. There's nobody that cannot become a transformational agent if they go through the process that produces that. But it's a foundational process. There is literally nobody, unless you quit. You have to make it your intention to quit and not go through the process. But if you go through the process that's based on foundation, that produces transformational coaches, you can't help but be a transformational coach. It's impossible to go through the foundational process and not experience what the foundation predictably produces. Foundation is predictable. Fundamentals are predictable. Fads are not. That's one of the reasons why fads are so risky for people. It's because they're not based on foundation. They're based on shortcuts. And the more that we try all these shortcuts, the more shame that we have, the more frustration that we have, the more irritation that we have, the less trust that we have, the less likely we are to actually choose the right thing, because now we're in the shortcut cycle. And then we just want another shortcut. Maybe that shortcut will make up for all the other shortcuts that didn't work for me. If you find yourself in that cycle, my invitation to you is stop. Stop. It doesn't matter how much time you've spent. It doesn't matter how much money you've spent. It doesn't matter how many times you think that you've made the wrong choice. None of that matters. You're in the wrong cycle, and you know it. If you're not on a foundational cycle, you know it. You just hope in your intellect that that's wrong. You just hope in the intellect that there is another shortcut that will make up for all of the other shortcuts that didn't work. It's a cycle of addiction. But if you know you're on that cycle, you've got to get out of the cycle. And you've got to fall on foundation. Foundations are predictable. That's what we do at ECCP. So you can go to coachseansmith.com/ECCP. We put together a crazy, amazing package for anybody that jumps into ECCP by Sunday, August 28th, which is just 2 days away from the time I'm recording this. If you're watching this after that date, show up anyway. You won't be able to get to the full package that we offer, but there's others available. There's other bonuses and so forth. But this other package, you guys, and you got to go to, we're going to send you, you can register for the webinar that we did last night, coachseansmith.com/part-time coach, hyphens in between the words, all lowercase letters. And you'll get the replay as soon as it's available. It's not available immediately right now, but as soon as it's available, should be available later today, you'll get the replay. Go to hour 1 and minute 39, 1:39, if you want to go directly to that package deal that we talked about. Go to 1:39. If you want to obviously watch the whole thing, then watch the whole thing. But you're going to get ECCP, you're going to get BCC, you're going to get the new BCC that we're about to do. And then you're also going to get the behind the scenes of the making of the BCC that we're about to do before, during, and afterwards when we put it online. You're going to be in the strategy meetings that we talk about what we're going to change. You're going to be able to film with us, be the audience while we create the new program. And then you're going to be in the meetings and watch us sell the program. You're going to watch the ads that we do. You're going to watch the campaigns that we put together for months and months and months. You're going to watch us from start to finish, create an online program, create the ideas of an online program, produce the online program, publish the online program, promote the online program, and hopefully profit from the online program. We will profit from the online program. To go from production to profit. How about that? That should be the title. From production to profit. But there's 2 steps in between: production, publication, promotion, profit. By the way, promotion never starts with profit. Maybe once in just a complete accident. But most people expect profit from your first promotion. It's not how it works. And you're going to get the behind the scenes of all of that. We will lose money first. You have to. We're going to lose money. You got to. But you got to have a long enough vision to recognize we're doing market research. We're figuring stuff out. We're polishing things. We're changing sales pitches. We're changing emails. We're changing campaigns. All of that stuff is what you'll be able to see in the behind the scenes process. So all of that, you'll get all the details. You get more of an explanation, all that stuff. You go to minute 1:39, 1 hour, 39 minutes into the webinar is the whole complete breakdown of all the details of that. If you have any questions whatsoever, let us know. You can put a comment in any of these videos, wherever you're seeing this. You can reach out and email us. You can book a free strategy session, coachseansmith.com/book my call, and have a one-on-one discussion with one of our team members. We're here to help. I think this world needs more real people helping real people. We don't need more fantasies and fads and icing, to put icing on meatloaf. We need real people doing real things and just helping folks out. Like the story is sexy enough. We don't have to add anything to it. The story is sexy enough that you can be who you are, you can learn how to do this work, and you can help change lives. If that's something you're committed to, we're here to help. With that, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you in the next video.